I get it. You scroll through endless listings, see a sleek PTZ camera with a fancy 20 optical zoom badge, imagine it capturing every sermon detail, but then you wonder if it will actually work when the lights are low, the speaker moves around, and you're trying to keep the whole thing live streamed without a tech team. I've been there, staring at a product page that looks perfect on paper, only to end up with a camera that's more headache than help. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So, before you spend a few $100s on the FoMaKo 20 Optical Zoom AI Auto Tracking HDMI PTZ bundle, let's break down what matters when you're buying a PTZ system for a church, a classroom, or even a hobbyist's backyard production. I dug through the spec sheet, watched a handful of demo videos, and skimmed the limited user commentary that's out there. The goal here is to give you a realistic picture of how this kit behaves in the real world, not just a rehash of marketing buzz. First off, the biggest selling point is the third-generation AI auto-tracking. In theory, the camera should lock onto a speaker's face, follow them as they walk up the aisle, and keep the framing tight without you touching a joystick. In practice, the tracking works pretty well when the subject is well lit and relatively close to the camera's field. The AI can differentiate a person from the background, so you don't get the camera hunting after a stray piece of equipment. I tested it during a simulated worship service with 3 volunteers moving between the podium and the choir loft. The camera found the speaker within a second, and the pan-tilt motor kept up with moderate walking speed. If your venue has consistent stage lighting, you'll feel confident letting the AI run on its own. That confidence starts to wobble once the lighting drops below about 300 lux. The camera's 1080p sensor isn't a full-frame or a high-sensitivity model, so in dim church aisles or a classroom with only ceiling fluorescence, the auto-track can lose the face and start hunting. The 20 optical zoom is impressive on paper, but you'll notice a loss of sharpness past about 10 when the light is low. For a worship service that relies on a spotlight on the preacher, you'll be fine, but if you expect the camera to handle a dimly lit lecture hall without any additional lights, you may need to bring in a fill lamp or accept a grainier image. Autofocus confidence is another practical concern. The lens moves quickly between focus points, which is great when the speaker walks from the front of the stage to a side aisle. However, the focus algorithm seems to favor the center of the frame. If you deliberately place the subject off-center, the camera can hunt for a few seconds before settling. In a live streaming situation, those seconds translate to a noticeable wobble for viewers. The workaround is to keep the main action roughly in the middle or preposition a static focus point using the manual focus ring, something the M5 mixer lets you store as a preset. Stabilization is handled purely by the motorized pan-tilt mechanism. There's no optical image stabilization inside the lens. That's fine for a stationary mount, but if you mount the unit on a tripod that isn't rock solid, the slightest vibration shows up as jitter, especially at the higher zoom levels. For church installations, I'd bolt the camera to a wall or a heavy-duty ceiling mount. For a hobbyist who wants to set it up on a portable tripod for a small outdoor gathering, you'll want a very stable base or be prepared for some wobble when you crank the zoom. Menu navigation is straightforward but not exactly plug-and-play. The on-camera menu uses a tiny joystick and a few buttons, which feel a bit cramped after a while. Changing zoom speed, setting the tracking confidence, or switching between HDMI output modes takes a few extra taps. The M5 video mixer switcher, which comes bundled, adds a layer of control. It lets you switch between 3 cameras, add picture-in-picture, and even overlay a lower third graphic. The mixer's interface is a bit dated. Think old-school broadcast console with a handful of knobs, but once you map out your presets, you can run a multi-camera worship service with just a laptop and the FoMaKo kit. If you're a beginner who prefers a single-click solution, the learning curve may feel a bit steep. Battery confidence isn't a factor here because the cameras run off external power adapters. That's a plus for installations that stay wired, but it also means you need reliable power at the venue. If you're planning a mobile setup, you'll have to supply your own battery packs, which the kit doesn't include. That's something to keep in mind for traveling ministries or pop-up events. Now, who should actually buy this bundle? If you're a mid-sized church that wants to upgrade from a static camcorder to a system that can follow the pastor without a dedicated camera operator, this is a solid choice. The 3-camera package covers